everybody. Welcome to day 5 of me going live 22 days in a row. I'm Lauren Lefkowitz, executive leadership coach and part of Team Difficult. If you don't know what Team Difficult is, check out my post from yesterday. I talked about it a little bit. When I went live yesterday, I talked about it actually a lot. So if you are joining me for the first time, then welcome. I hope you enjoy your time with me. I am streaming live to LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So I've got this like sort of janky setup where I've got my phone propped up in front of me, in front of my laptop so that I can be on all the places. So I see like several versions of me around the room, and I'm trying to look at all of them. If you are with me, know that I love comments. I love just say hi, tell me where you are, tell me what you ate for breakfast, whatever. And as the conversation is going on, I love to be involved in conversations. So please don't hesitate to comment. Let me know what you're thinking, ask me questions. And if something strikes you during the live today, go ahead and shoot me a DM, ask me for help, answer a question, tell me something resonated with you, whatever. My DMs are open. So anyway, it's Friday afternoon. I don't know how many of you are still sort of, alive and kicking on a Friday afternoon, but I am. I'm having a great day today, beautiful weather, and I'm going to be going out to dinner outside. I'm very excited about it. So let's talk about what we came here to talk about though. Yesterday I talked about doing the thing, about like just braving up, being you for you and doing the thing. And, LinkedIn user says barely alive and kicking. LinkedIn user, you are labeled as that because you haven't given Restream permission to use your name. So it would be great if you could just tell me who you are. I'm so glad you're here. And even if you're just barely surviving, I'm glad to see you. Hopefully I can bring you some energy. Kristen says, only because the coffee works. Yes. Well, coffee is, I'm myself a Diet Coke drinker, and try to limit myself to 1 or 2 a day, but I love caffeine. Caffeine is amazing. Carrie of the forehead. I would have just known if you said Carrie that that's who you were, but thank you for the addition of Carrie of the forehead. Carrie is a member of Team Difficult, which is part of the L2 group that launched yesterday. And many of us were wearing hashtag Team Difficult t-shirts yesterday. Carrie took it one step farther and put hashtag Team Difficult across her forehead, and then went out that way because she's brave and bold. So glad you're here with us. So yesterday we talked about doing the thing, right? And I was like real excited because my friend Lauren had just launched her company that was like just an idea a couple of months ago. And here we were, celebrating that it became an actual thing, right? There was a launch. And I talked about yesterday feeling like there was pressure. I was putting pressure on myself. Like, how come I'm not doing the thing? And I really thought about it, and I am doing the thing. I'm doing all the things, and also getting overwhelmed and also procrastinating, because that's what we do when we're human. We try and we fail and we try again and we stop ourselves because it's scary. And so today I want to talk about the question, what's before that? And this question comes up a lot when I'm working with my clients. It also comes up a lot when I'm working with myself, because we get into, whether you're a person who has like officially diagnosed anxiety or not, I do. And it's fairly new for me. It just came up a few years ago, and it's been sort of, ups and downs. And I have an amazing therapist, and I have an awesome coach, and I'm better to me than I've ever been to myself. And so feels, pretty well under control. And Paul, I see you joined the live on Instagram. So nice to see you. And so when I think about overwhelm, I sort of think of this order of things, right? We decide we want to do a thing. We think about doing something. Me right now, I'm working on getting more active on Instagram. And when I go to post something on Instagram, because I'm used to posting on LinkedIn and that's sort of my home and my place, and LinkedIn is very text heavy. When I go to post something on Instagram, I'll have an idea, I'll write something up, and then I'll go to Instagram and I'll think, oh, great, I need a graphic or a video or a something. I'm going to do a video. And then I think, well, if I'm going to do a video, I want to look nice. So I got to change my shirt. And if I'm going to do a video, I kind of want to do my hair. I kind of want to put on makeup, or I don't know, excuses, right? And then I do the video and then I'm like, oh, I have to put graphics on the video. And so then that's a little bit of work too. So by the time I sit down to try to do the Instagram thing, I've created 17 steps for myself. And then I don't want to do it, right? And that's like one Instagram post. And so we do this in our whole lives. I did it when I was creating my business, that I thought about the idea of starting my own business, which I was already doing on the side for many years as sort of ad hoc. But when I thought about making a bigger deal of it, and when I talked to my business coach for the first time, I always had this sort of vague 5-year plan, because before I started my own business, I had all these things that I wanted to do. I wanted to have a certain amount of money. I wanted to have one more corporate job for no good reason. I wanted to make sure that I had enough extra money set aside for benefits. I liked the stability of, my day to day. And so I made all of these excuses. And also, like, starting a business is super scary, right? Um, and so I was going to be in this constant state of procrastination, and 5 years from now, whenever 5 years might come up. And so what I learned for myself and what I've learned for others and what I've been practicing with others for years and years and years is to ask ourselves what's before that, right? And so we get into this spiral where we're like, well, I want to do this thing, but before that I have to do this, and there are all these steps in there, and we sort of stop in this murky middle of, I want to do this big thing or this little thing. I mean, it could be like, I want to cook more, which for some people is little. For me, that feels like a big deal. I have this kitchen, it has all these gadgets and appliances, and I don't really know what to do with it. So for me, that's something that's overwhelming. And I think, like, well, before I start cooking all the time, I have to do a whole bunch of things. I have to inventory my kitchen and figure out my menus and decide to meal prep. And, I make up all this stuff in my head that has to get done before things can happen. And the truth is, if we break it down into actual steps, right? I don't know if any of you saw the movie, What About Bob? That flies in my head all the time. If you have not seen the movie What About Bob, please leave this live and go watch it. Like, quit your job for the day, go watch that movie. It's brilliant. But the main character, who is played by Bill Murray, is riddled with anxiety and gets this advice to take baby steps from his psychologist or psychiatrist. And hilarity ensues. But he takes it very literally and starts actually physically taking baby steps. And I think of that anytime I get into overwhelm, because when I get into overwhelm, I decide that things are too hard and I'm not going to do them. And then I just sit and sort of fester about the shoulds. Does anybody else should themselves? Kristen says it's great. It's so great. It is such a great movie. And we should ourselves, which just makes us feel worse. And we sit in this murky middle with the thing we want to do being over here, and this, like, general idea that there are too many steps. And so if you think about the thing that you want to do and you break it down into, Carrie says all day long, if you break it down into tiny steps and you think of what your end goal is, and then you think, well, I can't do that yet because, change your narrative. What is before that, right? So if I think about starting my own business, quitting my job, taking this on, all this stuff that I'm doing now on full time, the thing I had to do right before I became a full time business owner was quit my job. So it wasn't like, well, I have to do a million things. It was the thing before being a full time business owner was leaving my job. And then I sat with myself and I said, cool, what's before that? Deciding on an end date. Cool, what's before that? Telling my boss that I'm leaving, right? Actually, probably reverse those, right? I had to tell my boss after I decided on an end date. And if you work yourself back to all the what's before that, and if we even take the simpler example of Instagram posts, right? I stop myself all the time. And if you go to my Instagram, it's lauren.coach.fine as a trap. You'll see that there are times when like I do 3 days in a row and I'll put up videos or graphics or something. And then like a month will go by and I haven't done anything because I get into that overwhelm. And so right now, I'm working with myself on the what's before that for Instagram. Megan says I should all over myself fairly often, but I'm getting better with recognizing it, which feels like a baby step to not doing it so much. Yeah, a lot of this, everyone is like about going easier on yourself and doing it deliberately. I talk all the time about the kind voice we have inside of us. That kind voice jumps out when anybody else is struggling. Your friend is having trouble, your boss who you don't even like had a tragedy in their family, your next door neighbor trips and falls and their mail flies everywhere. You are there. You're going to help, you're going to assist, you're going to be there, you're going to support, you're going to have compassion because you have a kind voice. We all have a kind voice. And Carrie says it's about giving yourself grace. It really is. It's about letting that kind voice that you give so easily to others also speak to you. And we are so much more apt to say to ourselves, like, you idiot, why aren't you just doing it? Other people just do it. Why aren't you just doing it? And the answer is we've been trained to crap on ourselves. That's the truth, is we've been trained to recognize our flaws. We've been trained to recognize that we aren't good at things. We aren't good enough. We are making mistakes. We are letting people down. And Carrie says that you suck at that. Yeah, we all suck at it. Congrats, you're normal. Right? We are terrible about giving ourselves grace. We are terrible about being that kind voice to ourselves. We immediately dive into our survival mechanisms and say, like, this could have been perfect. This could have been better. This should have been so much more fun. You should have helped more people. You should have done more, right? So going back to Megan's, the shoulds, right? And Kristen says, we talk about how to say no to people and we can say no to ourselves. Yes, we can. And we have an opportunity in every moment to redecide. And so as I think about my what's before that, and as I think about my own example of Instagram, I have to start thinking about not the end game, right? So for me, something that is going to be helpful, that I'm going to sit down and do this weekend, is making a list of the kinds of videos, just the topics of videos, short, little, nothing, me and the screen kind of videos um, that I want to put on Instagram, like 30-second snips or less, and then film a bunch, and then I have them. So my first step is actually making a list. That's the what's before everything, is making a list of the topics that I want to post short Instagram videos on. My next thing is choose my first video. My next thing is put some graphics on the video if I want to have some words up there or captions or a link to something. And then my next thing is write the narrative, which for me is the totally easy part. Writing is my favorite. I love doing it. It comes so easily to me. So all the other stuff that's before that has been keeping me in overwhelm and keeping me from doing what I do really want to do, which is engage in a new and different way on Instagram. And it's getting used to a new platform because, like I said, LinkedIn is so different. I mean, here I am on video on live on LinkedIn, and I'm really comfortable with that. Um, but it took me like, I don't know, 3.5 minutes to write the narrative for the LinkedIn Live, and I'm used to it and I know how to do it. So it doesn't feel like a lot of steps for me. So as you're thinking about the things that you want to do, and as you're thinking about what's on your plate, and when you think about doing something and you immediately shut yourself down, think about those murky middle steps. Think about what is stopping you. What is that fear point or that overwhelm point or that procrastination point where you're like, it's too many steps. I'm not going to do it. And think about your first step. And sometimes we think about our first step and it's actually like the 10th step, especially if it's something big, right? Like if you say, I'm going to go look for a job, and you open up your resume and you're like, oh, I never added my newest job to my resume. Well, then your first step is not apply for a job. That's too far out. Your first step is, what do I do at my current job? Right? So it's not like just quitting and shutting down. It's, what do I want to do for myself? What do I want to do to develop myself, to create something in my life? And what is the first step? And if that first step feels overwhelming, it is so often because there are steps before the steps. So ask yourself the question, what is before that? And what is before that? And sometimes the very first step is just like deciding, just saying yes to yourself about something, just thinking about it, just spending time reflecting on it, noticing what you don't want anymore, maybe the first step. But I find, and I find with a lot of people that I talk to and that I work with, that when we get into overwhelm, it's because we've stacked a whole bunch of steps on top of each other. So the whole thing just feels like too much, too long, too involved, too difficult. So one step at a time, baby steps, as Bill Murray said in What About Bob? And if you're in overwhelm, what is before the thing that you're doing, or the thing that you're telling yourself to do that you're in overwhelm about? That's it for today. I will be back tomorrow, 22 days live in a row. And today was day 5. If you have any topics that you want me to talk about, any questions, you can put them in the comments. Send me a DM. I'm happy to talk on all topics: executive coaching, HR, workplace, self-care, whatever you got. I'm here for it. And I really appreciate you all joining me on a Friday afternoon. I hope I have lifted you up a little bit. Have an amazing weekend. Bye, all.